So without further ado, we're going to introduce to you Bill Messerschmidt.
We're all assembled. You all know what that was. Well, I'm really privileged. I feel highly honored, privileged to be here with all of you. It really is great to hear so much great drumming and so many wonderful people. Thankful for the opportunity and getting to where I'm thankful each morning for each day I've got, you know, and the career I've had, and it's been really, really great. So, got some ideas to share. I have quite an eclectic background. The first two drum teachers I had were wrists only, wrists only, wrists only. And the second teacher I had, who was the first guy's teacher, played with Sammy Davis Jr. and got all around, but it was wrists only, wrists only. And at the time I was in school, I'd go and compete for district band, and they'd say, do the long roll, and I'd go. Everybody else would be going. So I never quite made it to the top of the rudimental competitions in high school. Then my high school band was pretty sad, I guess you could say, for a number of reasons. But so the drum corps bug kind of bit me, and I did a kind of a brief career with a local drum and bugle corps, which wasn't too famous for its achievements. In fact, at one point they went in a competition with one snare player, and they got a lot of points taken off because the snares weren't playing together.
Been there before.
So, but at any rate, they had a good instructor, a guy who had been with the Riley Raiders. If any of you remember the Riley Raiders, but this guy, no, who would know them? But the guy was really good. But the whole point in the drum corps was use your arms, use your arms, use your arms. So I'm like warped here, you know. So well, and I went on to study with the last 2 years in high school with a man named William J. Shinstein, and I'm happy to see there's some solos back there by him, and he kind of put it all together, which I noticed that not only my teachers in college, but the best players at the school I attended also did. So I'm thinking, okay, well, not just wrist, but arm. Then I got into the Wilcoxon finger stroke control stuff, and so it's like that. But I wasn't in drum corps very long, but I had a lot of band experience, and that's kind of what I wound up doing. I was in the U.S. Army Field Band, and then subsequently in the United States Army Band Pershing's Own, and where I had the privilege, the deep privilege, of getting to know Gary Rockwell. And after I got off the road with the Army Field Band and started doing some serious teaching and started taking a bite out of the apple as far as my teaching goes and getting, before that I just played. I didn't really think about it. But I remember picking Gary's brain, and he was a very successful teacher, and was talking about upstrokes and downstrokes and all this stuff. And, you know, I had some books like that. In fact, the first book I started with was a Moeller book, so I'm going to get back in, look at this stuff and revisit this stuff. So, I did, and taught quite a bit, performed quite a bit. Been retired since 2002 from Pershing's Own, and happily still teaching and performing, and I was especially happy to be hired at Virginia Commonwealth University in the capital of Virginia, because in a lot of places these days in higher education, rudimental drumming is not regarded very highly. it's higher education, but when it comes to rudimental drumming, that's like a little story about that. A very well-known, very highly regarded percussion professor at a very highly regarded institution. I saw him at one of the percussive arts events. I said, you know, I wrote this really neat drum solo, rudimental drum solo. And, you know, if you'd be interested in it, I could send it up and students could use it for juries or even on a recital. And he gave me this look like the people looked at Rip Van Winkle when he woke up and said, how's King George doing? You know, it was 20 years after independence. You know, I got that kind of look from him, and he just said, we don't do snare drum solos anymore. So I'm, whoa. So, and then subsequently, I did get hired back in 2008 at Virginia Commonwealth University. The guy who was my superior there, who was the professor of percussion, who had played with the Phantom Regiment, his attitude was, with the percussion majors, we got to get them off the snare drum and into multiple percussion. Like, this snare drum is just, you know, that's like nothing. And I don't agree with that at all. Or if I agreed with that, I wouldn't be here. But that fella has moved on to another institution. But my current superior is a fabulous marimba player. He won the Percussive Arts Society marimba solo competition in 2003. Best marimba player in the whole, from everywhere. His name's Peter Martin. Plays piano beautifully. You never heard a four-mallet player like this guy. Well, we were eating lunch after he was hired to teach at Virginia Commonwealth. So we got talking philosophy and rudiments and drums and stuff and percussion, and he has an unusually high degree of respect for snare drum for somebody who's really not oriented toward drum corps or marching band or any rudiments or anything like that. And he told me his story. He went to Rutgers University, and he decided to attend Rutgers University because Shi-E Wu, the famous mallet virtuoso, was there. And he wanted to study four mallets with Shi-E Wu. So he got his lesson assignments. And lo and behold, his teacher was Dennis DeLucia. So Peter Martin said to me, and I thought, I got my teacher assignment, Dennis DeLucia. What am I going to get from this guy? What could I possibly get from Dennis DeLucia? So I said, well, what happened? He said, well, the first lesson, I got him in the studio, and he made me put on a rope drum with a sling and play rudiments. So I thought, yes. So anyway, my current boss in the percussion department is more favorable toward rudimental drumming than many people out there in academe. But there really are some good reasons, I think. Unfortunately, I think sometimes we maybe can't be good enough salesmen for what we know is really good. There's a book out there recently published by a very noted fellow, and he talks about the traditional left-hand grip and says that has absolutely, as I remember now from his book, he says, has absolutely nothing to do with anything else you do in percussion. Well, that's one of the issues I would like to address today, among others. Anyway, I have outlines here if anybody's interested, but this is a result of the fruit of a lot of work, a lot of time, and there's something in it for everybody. If you were band directors, if you weren't drummers, there'd be something in it for you. If you were students, there'd be something in it for you, and hopefully there'll be something in it for all of you. But obviously, different emphases.
Do you want those handed out?
I put some around. There's some on the chair over there too.
But if I had talked with Bill about the clinic, and he read the little synopsis that I'd given him, and I'm not going to spend much time on the first Roman numeral. Okay, you all know probably more than I do about that first category. All I'll say is that you know, we need to remember what a wonderful thing it is to play rudimental drums. If it weren't for the rudimental drummers, we wouldn't be a free, independent country, because they gave all the signals to the troops. It was rudimental drummers that helped win our independence. And so that's about all I'll say. And the second heading under that first part, it's important because a lot of people are still doing it. Enough said. Enough said. I don't need to tell people, really? There are people that are still doing that? You know, not here. So anyway, the second heading is, and I don't want to take too much time with that, but a few things that I would like to point out. It's number 2. The physical aspects of traditional rudimental drumming are the basis of modern rudimental drumming, and they also provide a foundation for approaches to orchestral drumming. Okay, so I would like to just touch a few things really quickly here. You get the standard textbook, or you get what the teacher says, this is how you hold a stick. Period. Well, with my, as I said, eclectic background, with, you know, a lot of marching and concert work and playing timpani and mallets and symphony orchestras and even, yes, drum set and everything, I've come to this, that I think there could be lots of variations of this, but I'm just going to say, for me, I think there's like 2 grips, 2 basic right-hand grips, or matched grips if you're talking about the right hand. With the matched grip would be both hands. The fulcrum forward, and I don't know if everybody can see that, it's just up in the corner there. And that's basically, that's up here at the fingertips, okay, across the last 2 joints, the index and middle fingers, with the end of the thumb pad. It's up here. I had the privilege of studying percussion with Michael Buxpan, the late principal of the Philadelphia Orchestra. When he played bolero, he held the stick like that, right on the fingertips. And I'll tell you what, I couldn't play bolero as softly as he could. But now, that grip, you know, fingertip grip, that doesn't work for heavy playing. If you try to play heavy like that, it just, you know, it doesn't work. Corresponding to that grip is the Dresden or French timpani grip, which is what most of the timpani books tell you to do. You hold the timpani mounts like this, which is very good. That's how I was taught, and I do that. I still do that when I have notes that aren't too heavy or too fast. It really gets the mallet off of the drum. It's very musical. Just like playing bolero, tips of the fingers, very musical. But before I was even taught anything differently, I'd have to sub for the timpanist in the Army band. And the colonel would go like this, and he went to, you know, super roll. You try to do that with that French grip, as I understand it, it doesn't work. You've got to pinch so hard, you get so tight that it doesn't work. So every time I'd have those big rolls, I'd just sort of, without thinking about it, move that mallet back to the next joint, the middle joint of the middle finger, and the last joint of the thumb, which is for a grip that some of my students who were in marching band, they go to drum camp, and they come back and say that the instructor said, hold the stick like this. I say, no, that's bad, because I was in a concert mode, and I say, no, hold it like this. But I've grown, you know, I've learned. We should always keep learning. You're never too old to learn, so I still got a lot to learn. But anyway, I saw, yeah, you know, it's like the timpani thing, so, yeah. But I've looked in vain in any of the publications. I mean, I've got books by all the top people going out there, and I don't see it this defined like this, okay? With the what I call the fulcrum back, with that last joint of the thumb and the middle joint of the middle finger. You wrap the fingers around, and that looks just like the pictures in the drum books, but they don't tell you the pressure point is right there. But there's one book that does. There's one book that does. Buddy Rich's Modern Interpretation of Drum Rudiments actually talks about, defines a non-bouncing grip with the pad of the thumb, and then moving to the back, he specifies the back of the thumb for the bouncing. And I thought, yeah, and that's exactly like what we have in the Berlin or German timpani grip. Okay? You can all see that. And that works. When you're unloading on the roll, the finale of the Tchaikovsky Fourth Symphony, I'm not up here on the fingertips. I wouldn't want to be. Okay, if I were, I'd be so stiff, or else I'd lose a stick, the mallet. Anyway, so we see that there are carryovers. There's important relationships here. Okay, I'm going to just refer to this. You see the Boston grip? Anybody see that? What's the big characteristic, the big difference in Boston grip? Anybody?
Position of the thumb?
Yeah, well, yes, in relation to the index finger. The index finger is extended in front of the fulcrum. This is a grip Carl Gardner taught. This is a grip that Bill Shinstein taught. And he made you play like that all the time. Now, again, I'm an independent so-and-so. I mean, I do my own thing. You can ask my wife, she'll tell you. But, so I'm always thinking, well, yeah, but, yes, but, or what if? So my point right now, and again, all this stuff I'm giving you, this is my take on this stuff, and you might agree, you might not agree, you might think, oh, the guy's full of hot air, which, whatever. But this is what I've come to after a life of performing and teaching. That index finger extended in front of the fulcrum is a huge help when you're executing flams, because you can not only pivot and pull, but you can actually exert pressure in front of the fulcrum and help you get down like, I don't know, I should use the pad or use the drum. I blast you out, but see. So when I teach the kids, you know, hey, get your fingers involved. Index finger, pull. Index finger, push. So I got a couple of kids doing downfall for the Solo and Ensemble Festival. So works great. So I don't use it all the time, but as I like quoting authorities that I think are right on.
Is that similar to a French? I've seen French or not English, or French or German bands play. They seem to sway.
Yeah, well, that's if when you look at the introduction to Sanford Moeller's the Moeller book, he talks about how his whole technique. You know, you can see the pictures. They're doing that, and what does he say in there? He says, I've studied all these methods from France and Germany and England and Scotland and Italy, and this is like the way to do it. So, you know, he wasn't, you know, just in a vacuum. So it's no accident and I've seen that too. We worked at Yorktown for the anniversary of the victory at Yorktown. The French Marine Band was there, and then they were doing all this stuff and a lot of lesson 25 and all like really showy. But let's see where. So it's the relationships here between on the block anyway. These are really, I think, interesting relationships. Okay, so I use the Boston grip for flam execution, and I recommend it. Okay, one last thing about this: the left fulcrum, and you know, you guys aren't college students that never learned to play traditional grip. The fulcrum, of course, is here. I'll just point something out though. in case you ever have to justify that to a band director or a student or, you know, somebody, like, why don't you just do this? Okay, well, what did we say about the fulcrum forward? That gives you the most control, fingertip control, delicacy. You can play, you know, you can play bolero and just get the, be right there. But when we have to play loudly, loud and fast, like drum line, drum set, we move that fulcrum back. It's back here, and we got the fingers back here and everything, and we're rocking, right? Because the fulcrum is stronger, right? We move back. Okay, well, if we move back one more step, where would we be? We started up here on the last joints. We moved to the middle. If we had to move back one more, where would we be? There. This is a stronger fulcrum than this, which, whether it was realized consciously or not, was why so many traditional grip teachers kept teaching traditional grip. Even my professor in college, who changed the percussion majors to play match grip, said to me, admitted to me once, yeah, when I was growing up, I was doing a lot of drum corps stuff and a lot in dance jobs, drum set stuff all the time. And this guy was very athletic. And John Beck. And he said, but you know, he said, my right hand would get tired, but my left hand never got tired. Just throwing that out there. Anyway, similarities, okay, left grip, we, oh, I won't take time to get the mallets. You know how this stuff goes. But if you're a serious marimba player in the United States these days, you've got to learn to play Stevens grip. Okay, so Stevens grip looks like this, down in the lower left corner. Okay, what does that look like? What does that remind you of? Traditional left grip, maybe a little bit, a lot. And you know what else? The action is the same, because I believe U.S.A.R.D. Stevens went to Moeller and patterned his whole idea of this rotation on Moeller, which is all rotation, 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 both inwardly for the Stevens grip and outwardly. And that there's a lot here I could get into, but I'm going to just talk a little bit about. Don't forget that inward-outward thing. Well, I'll hit that right now. I brought it up. It's sort of a natural progression here. There are different ways that the wrists can work. Okay, they can work with a rotation, and they can also work like an inward rotation. They can also work with an outward rotation, which I use. And again, I'm just throwing at you what I do, but like I've seen so many really fine concert players when they're doing their roll. Kind of rolling their wrists. I loaned the drum to a student for a college tryout. But this kind of, it's like a rolling kind of thing. The sticks aren't just going straight up and down. And I think one of the points I want to make is, for a really good roll, your sticks are going to work differently for single strokes, where you got that basically inward rotation, and the rolls where you're kind of rolling a little bit. And it's just a little bit, okay? It's not like, you know, extreme. I'm talking subtleties. This is very subtle stuff, okay? But to do that, there's a rolling going on, okay? And notice, if you think of how the timpani, when you play with timpani mallets, it's the same thing happening. There's this sort of right hand, slight counterclockwise ellipsis, and there's a left hand, slight, I'm sorry, a right hand clockwise ellipsis and a left hand slight counterclockwise ellipsis. Okay, so it's like this. It's not just like straight up and down. Okay, it's there's an action like what Lee Howard Stevens calls like turning a knob or turning a doorknob or a valve. It's like, and I use this in my drumming for the rolls. And that brings me quickly to the arm action. There are different ways the arms can work. And you'll see, if you look through the whole thing, that several times I have, in really bold letters, the two kinds of strokes that there are. There are two kinds of strokes in drumming. There's straight strokes and they're wave strokes. I mean, you can do all this straight strokes that come right up immediately. Jeff Queen calls those velocity strokes, where you're making a separate wrist action for each note. And the wave strokes are commonly referred to as molar strokes, where you're doing this. I mentioned in here, okay, the straight strokes with the arms can be like this. They can also be straight up and down. And here's one other thing I'll throw out at you. And this is just my experience, and take it or leave it. But when I first started doing a lot of teaching, after I'd picked Gary's brain about the teaching, I was studying all this stuff, I thought, wow, this downstroke, upstroke stuff, you know, every positions, that's where it's at. And I had pretty good luck, you know, good fortune with the students, until I got to the Radimacube. I'm teaching the Radimacube. You know, you got an accent, you prepare for it, just like the Flamacube. You prepare for it. See, I'm preparing, I'm getting into it. So I thought, well, or the paradiddle. Okay, so Radimacube, same thing, right? And you know what? None of my students played it well. The best of the students had problems with it. And it always came out kind of like this. I thought, no, cut that out. It's like it sounds like you're playing a jazz fill. It's not. It's, and it got so bad that I thought, you know, I've got to figure this out. And I figured it out. I locked myself in my studio, and I thought, okay, now I'm going to figure this out. So I start off the way I thought. When I got going fast, the up isn't in the middle of the triplet, it's on the last note. And if you do it like that, I mean, I'm not in the greatest shape right now playing, but believe me, no matter how fast people who do it the other way can do it, I know they can do it faster if they did this, because logically, you're immediately preparing for the next note you got to play. You come to up, up, boom, and you're right where you need to be. If you go to da 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 dum, up, 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 bum, it's I think it's like an application of the, like Moeller technique. Same thing with double drags, or what they now call double drag taps for some reason. Same thing. You get going fast on that rascal. I mean, you can think slower, but push it. What are you doing? What am I doing? I'm coming up. I'm accenting up, like up. You can accent up in the outline. I call that a. This is my term, my description. I asked my daughter what to call it. She just got a master's degree in piano performance. And she says, well, it's just like the way you release, like a staccato loud chord. You see a good pianist go, choom. They don't go like, choom. They go, choom. And I just thought, well, what is it? It's like a staccato with a forearm movement, forearm staccato. So when you're coming back with to the same hand, that's when you revert. Just like if you're playing taps, you come right back up because you're going to play the next tap of the same hand, right? Just so the next big note is with the left, and you want to be in position. And as we've heard very well pointed out earlier, it's about positions, correct positioning. Rudimental drumming is the whole story is positions. So, all right, well, let's let that accenting up thing. If you have any familiarity with timpani, you play up all the time. Sometimes more staccato and sometimes more legato, but it's always that up. And drummers who are well schooled in traditional rudimental drumming know what up is, and they can do it, and it's natural. Okay? Next thing, musical benefits. There are a ton of these that people, that I hadn't even thought of some of them till a year ago. But a noted rudimentalist said at one point recently in print that well, these, that some of the rudiments are really important for general playing, but 7-stroke rolls and 11-stroke rolls, they're not really that important. I've been a professional, full-time performing band musician all my life, and trust me, that's a wrong statement. Because when you're playing in a concert situation, tempos can be all over the place. So, I mean, it's fine if you're doing marching tempo like bum, dee, dum, dee, dum, dee, dum, dee, dum, bum, dee, dum. But suppose it's like bum, dee, dum, dee, dum, dee, dum, bum, 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 bum. Or how about bum, dee, dum, dee, dum, dee, dum, bum. Or how about bum, dee, dum, dee, dum, bum, bum. I'm using 7s and 11s, 13s, and if you're schooled in those rolls, it's like a natural, okay? So that's, and of course you can apply that to really fast tempos where you're going like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, triplet bass rolls, like the 16th for the and, you can turn that in if the beat's going real fast, because it's like 8th note pulsation if the quarter gets a beat. 1, 2, 3. So concert value for traditional rudimental drumming. Another, at the bottom of page 3 there, okay? And this is something to just think about, and I do like the way Jeff Queen addresses this in his book, The Next Level. He talks about how he uses both velocity strokes, one muscle action for one note, and molar strokes. We describe the molar strokes where you're doing one movement and getting several notes out, like see, I'm going bum, bum, I'm coming up on that note. Now I can do that a lot faster than I could do it if I were having to do it the way most drumline instructors insist on it, which is no upstrokes. Okay, and it's not like I'm saying well, they're bad guys. It's just, why are they doing it? Because if you're going, the little notes are not all being played in the same manner, and that's the risk. I mean, you can fly with that, but if you're going, that's more precise in a way. And if you don't have to go too fast, it probably sounds more uniform. So that's why a lot of drumline instructors, you don't see them doing this. But for artistic playing, and the last point I want to get over, this is the point that I really want to make big time. Where are we? I'll just, two other things. This is on page 4, the different ways of accenting. If you're into this, what I conceive of as a traditional approach, you got basically 3 kinds of musical accents. You got sharp wrist accents, straight strokes, okay, right? Or if they're really loud, you can do the arm and the wrist. You can do it with a wave, or straight. But then the third one, you can use your arms to make musically subtle differentiation between notes that should be have a little more stress, but not really be accented. Like if you're phrasing to the beat, like dee dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba 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 dee dum ba. Or if you have a negagic accent, the accent, a little bit more emphasis on the longer note, like bum ba bum bum, like the march, Rolling Thunder. It's a circus march. Bum 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 ba da 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 ba ba da 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 da. Drum part. It's not a big accent. It's not bum 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 bum, but bum 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 bum. The arm gives you more weight. It's a subtle accent which lines up a lot better with our friends that play brass instruments, woodwind instruments, and even strings. They're like the farthest away from us, but we still got to work with them sometimes. Anyway, there are many, many, many benefits of going down the page, the open-closed open method of practicing rudiments. You can't beat that. You can't beat that for learning a rudiment or learning a part. Break it down and figure out every note, and it works. And then I would really like to call your attention to 3E. I'm going to read this. The traditionally recommended practice of accenting the second note of each pair of notes in the long roll, as on the U.S.A.R.D chart, produces evenness of double strokes and is essential for technical excellence in every area of percussion. Okay, I have all my students practice what I call the very important exercise, which is a 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a 1. And I, following the printed advice of Buddy Rich, say let your wrist and your arm go with that accent. Just let your forearm ride that accent. Okay, that's one of the most important things you can learn to do in percussion. Playing multiple notes with one hand, all the same. It's one of the challenges that we all face. It doesn't matter if you're Chris Lamb in the New York Philharmonic or a fourth grade beginner. It's a challenge. But it's something that's inherent in the traditional approach to rudimental drumming. Accent the second note of the roll. Look in the inside of the Ludwig solo collection or the Moeller books, and a little technical, I'll get a little technical here. I believe the long roll, when it's correctly played, I actually, don't fall over now. I could call it, in a sense, a hybrid rudiment. Why? How many strokes do we have? Straight strokes, wave strokes. You're using both. For me, to do it the best. So you got your straight stroke coming back up, but I'm adding that molar wave to it so that I'm trying to get all of them equal and even, just like that. What you'll hear from most people is, but if you analyze what I just did, the first note in each pair is a little bit louder. The second note is a little softer, and the second note, very often, unless you're dealing with like the very top of the line people, is often even a little rhythmically too fast. Because when you're playing notes unevenly, it's hard. If you're playing them unevenly from a dynamic sense, it's hard to play them evenly in a rhythmic sense. And that's true with single strokes. You've got to be really careful. If you're accenting some notes and others, you've got to compensate so that all the notes are 16ths or whatever they are. But anyway, that's one thing that I would throw out. This is how I like to do the long roll, just like that. So that every note sounds like I'm going, hopefully. That's what I aspire toward, We all try to do the best we can. And this is for all percussion. And I've got an awesome, juicy quote here that I need to share with you. Just so you realize, just so you get the maximum appreciation for what you all are doing and what you all represent. This isn't a drumline instructor from a corps. This is Fred Hinger. Anybody know who Fred Hinger was? He was the yeah, he was Eastman graduate, U.S. Navy band, principal percussionist in the Philadelphia Orchestra, later timpanist in the Philadelphia Orchestra, and later the timpanist in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra in New York City. An absolute unsurpassed musician. Let me read a little paragraph of what Fred Hinger said about what I was just talking about with the double strokes, okay? This is from the introduction of his book, Solos for the Virtuoso Timpanist, okay? And he uses a lot of doubling in here. But he says, quote, Fred Hinger, "I believe that the accomplished timpanist must have a great physical facility at his command, and that the ability to use double sticking not only increases this facility, but also enhances the musical phrasing. The reason for this enhancement is the need for more articulation on the second or leading sound of the doubling and a resultant forward motion of the musical idea."
I've heard that parallel with the action of the bow on a string.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing that I'm constantly trying to share that with my students. You know, like you're going to play this rhythm here, like the bum ba bum 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 ba ba bum bum bum. I said, just think how you're playing that with the trombones or the tubas. They're going bum bum bum. A little bit of emphasis, a little extra weight, not a big accent, not a wrist accent, bum bum bum. Not a big arm accent certainly, but you get that arm into it. Also, my last closing shot here, using the arms, getting the right mix of arm, wrist, and finger is one of the things I aspire to, and I think the arms at the right time help to play the notes. Obviously, I was talking about the double stroke roll, but also with the multiple bounce or buzz roll, same thing. The arm keeping going down into it keeps more weight going on the secondary notes. So, any other questions?
I just had a comment. With Bill Shinstein, I knew him well. How did he play with a missing thumb?
Yeah, I got to tell you this. Mr. Shinstein was drafted for the Army in World War II. During basic training, through an accident, he lost his index finger in his left hand and his thumb. He had 3 fingers left, 5, 4, and 3. And he played traditional grip, left hand, with his middle finger over the stick. And he played fantastic. He got good enough to be principal percussionist in the Pittsburgh Symphony under Fritz Reiner. So, what an example. It's like a guidepost story. You know, anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I got to go.
Very good.
Thank you.